It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this one-day workshop on AI tools for research and publications. I also warmly welcome our respected Dean Sir of MBA, Dr. G. Dhananjay Garu, for his continuous support in promoting quality education and research excellence. My heartfelt welcome to our Head of the Department MBA, Dr. G. Mariapalli Garu, for the dedicated efforts and coordinating in organizing the important academic initiatives. Now it's my privilege to introduce our esteemed resource person, Dr. K. Soumya Rani Garu, for one-day workshop on AI tools on research and publications, organized by the Department of MBA, Narayana Engineering College, Nellore. In today's rapidly evolving academic and research landscape, the ability to publish high-quality research while responsibly leveraging emerging technologies has become indispensable. This workshop is a time initiatives aimed at the empowering researchers, faculty, and students with cutting-edge tools and ethical insights for effective scholarly communication. We are extremely privileged to have with us today a highly accomplished academician, editor, researcher, and entrepreneur, Dr. K. S. Soumya Rani Garu, as our resource person. Dr. Soumya Rani Garu holds a PhD and currently serves as an editor at Edge, Cactus Communication, one of the world's leading academic editing organizations. She is also the founder of Saumis AWW, a research-focused startup dedicated to enhancing the research footprint of academic institutions through faculty development programs and manuscript editing services. Her venture is proudly incubated under the World Startup Program at NSRCEL in Near of Management, Bangalore, and co-incubated with the Kerala Startup Mission. With over 6 years of experience as a speaker, Dr. Soumya Rani Garu has delivered impactful sessions at several prestigious institutions including IITs, NITs, universities, medical colleges, management institutes, and research organizations across India. Her talks span diverse and contemporary themes such as AI tools in academic research, manuscript writing, and publishing science communications, NEP 2020, from a research perspective, fellowships and scholarships abroad, and design teaching. As an editor, she brings with her 6 years of professional editorial experiences, having edited over 1,500 scientific documents, including research articles, these grants proposals, and science communication content. She is also highly ranked expert editor in the field of biochemistry, genetics, and molecular biology, reflecting her deep academic and editorial expertise. Dr. Soumya Rani Garu is also a recipient of several prestigious fellowships, including the DAAD Sandwich Model Scholarship for Research in Germany, CSIR JRF, and JSR Summer Research Fellowship, and has successfully qualified multiple national level competitive examinations such as GATE, DBT JRF, CSIR UGC JRF, and SE. Her impressive list of publications in high-impact journals further reflect her strong research credentials. Today's workshop, AI-assisted manuscript writing, is designed as a one-day intensive program offering both conceptual understanding and hands-on exposure to more than 15 AI tools relevant to research question validation, literature review, manuscript drafting, editing, publishing, data analysis, and presentations. Equally important, the workshop emphasizes ethical considerations, publisher requirements, and responsible use of AI in academic writing, which is crucial for maintaining research integrity. On behalf of Department of MBA, Narayana Engineering College, Nellore, I extend our sincere gratitude to Dr. K. Soumya Rani Garu for accepting our invitation and for sharing her valuable time, expertise, and insights with us today. We are confident that this workshop will be highly enriching and will significantly enhance the research and publications capability of our participants. Once again, I warmly welcome our esteemed resource person and all the participants and wish everyone a highly informative and engaging learning experience. Thank you. Now I invite our today's resource person, Dr. K. S. Soumya Rani Garu, to take over the session. Now I invite Dikshita to present the bouquet for K. S. Soumya Rani Garu.
Good morning. This is my first time and I definitely love what I'm seeing already. I wish I could stay back and go around town, but unfortunately that's not possible today. Nevertheless, it's a pleasure to be here on this morning. Some of you I see are pretty young students. You are not yet initiated into research. So some parts of the talk might sound like Greek and Latin to you, something completely different. But just travel with me. When you reach that stage where you're ready to write your thesis, where you're ready to write your first report, whatever I'm talking today just might make a bit more sense to you once you have started writing. And I know there is a Soumya in the audience who got these to know it because she shared my name. If you're around, a special hi to you. Yeah? Okay. So let's move ahead. I'll start with the, okay, you can read over both lines together. That alone. That's okay. You have seen my face, you know what I look like, so you can follow the trail of my voice. Let's go ahead next. So let me start with a very simple question that has to be answered by the backbencher. So how many of you here recognize the face that you see on the screen? You should. Who's the? Dr. Strange, but he's also Sherlock Holmes, one of the best adapted versions of Sherlock Holmes. In real life, he's called. This is the most important general knowledge you should have. He's called Benedict Cumberbatch. 200 points to the person who got it right. So Ben happens to be one of the most handsome actors ever the English soil has produced, at least according to me. Apart from that, he has also done a lot of amazing movies. And one of his very great movies is called Imitation Me. So this movie, this story, is set in the World War times. World War II to be precise. Do you remember your school days? World War II? Who had an upper hand? The Germans, the Nazis had an upper hand. It was the time of Hitler through and through. And the Nazis had an upper hand for a lot many reasons. But one key reason was they had this encryption machine called Enigma. So today, when you and I add a new person to your contact list, what is the first message that pops up on WhatsApp? Now all messages you send to this person are encrypted end to end, which means the boring good morning, good evening, did you sleep, did you eat, all your very boring personal messages are safeguarded from third eyes. Nobody can read your messages. Today encryption has become that much accessible. But when we are talking World War, 6-7 decades ago, encryption was a costly affair and only military communications had encryption and Germans had this best encryption called Enigma. Nobody could break it. It is at this time that this English mathematician nerd called Alan Turing walks into the war scene. He and his team go on to break the code of Enigma, and that kind of brings World War II to an end. And this movie, The Imitation Game, is all about Alan Turing, his pursuits, and also his unfortunate death as well. Today, we are here to talk about this brand new technology called Gen AI or Generative Artificial Intelligence. So why am I opening my session talking about old stories? Talking about stories that happened 60 years, 70 years ago. Just to drive home the fact that this person, Alan Turing, was not just a mathematical nerd, he is also one of the founding fathers of artificial intelligence. What does that tell us? It tells us that AI per se is not. Artificial intelligence, the technology and the terminology has been changed the conversation around AI. So when did this change? How did this change? This all changed in November 22 thanks to this phenomenon called ChatGPT. When OpenAI unleashed this beast on us, our lives were changed forever. You can easily call it before ChatGPT, after ChatGPT. That's how much of change we have faced because of this one introduction. But one problem, one of the first limitations that we should understand with AI is these companies, including OpenAI, including ChatGPT, they were not built for accuracy. When they built the tool, they did not think, okay, now we are going to bring in the most accurate information possible to its users. They did not think that. They wanted to develop a tool that is popular, that is easy, that can walk the audience. Which means, just imagine, 3-4 years back, when ChatGPT came into our lives, you go into ChatGPT, you keep asking questions. For every third question, ChatGPT tells you, sorry, I do not know the answer. Would you like ChatGPT equally as much as you like it now? I'm highly doubt it. We all fell for ChatGPT because it seemed to know all the answers. Anytime you walk into a social gathering, who's the person that attracts the most, most attention? Usually the extroverted person seems to have all the answers. So that was what ChatGPT was. But when you are talking to these people who seem to have all answers, what do you discover? You discover is they seem to give answers for everything, but not all answers are needed. That is what they discovered with ChatGPT. Most of the answers that come out of these Gen AI tools, they are flawed. They are inaccurate because these tools were not built for accuracy first. Now you can ask me, okay, maybe this is the flaw in ChatGPT. But how about the latest models, like the model of DeepSeek we had somewhere in the middle of last year? Are they any better? Are they accurate? They are definitely better than ChatGPT because they are built to meet answer. When you ask a question to DeepSeek, what does it do? It transparently tells you, okay, now I'm taking your question, I'm going into 10,562 reports, I'm analyzing it, and then I have filtered out, say, 40 reports. Now I will give you the answer from these 40 reports or in a hypothetical scenario. Even then, these tools are not 100% accurate, which is problematic, which is a limitation. Now, this happened in Jan 2025, which is like a year or so ago. But towards the end of 2025, we started talking about a new class of AI tools called agentic AI. So what is agentic AI? Agentic AI is what can do a large process, multi-step process, pretty quickly without much human intervention. Agentic AI is said to be one of the very, very concrete steps towards autonomous AI. What is autonomous AI? Autonomous AI are AI systems that don't need humans. All the Hollywood movies that you watched, from iRobot to every other robotic AI movie you have watched, all those movies are talking about agentic AI, or even better, they're talking about autonomous AI. And what is the first step towards autonomous AI? It is having agentic AI that can do very complex processes seamlessly, one step after the other. And that is what was possible with GPT-5. So agentic AI is definitely a huge leap. Yes, it is great. It's good that it can do complex processes, but the problem still remains that even these tools are not 100% accurate. At best, they have reduced what are called hallucinations by 40%, but they still have the very fundamental problems that our first ever version of ChatGPT had. So what is this AI hallucination that we keep talking about? What is hallucination in general? Hallucination is when you believe, so you have all heard about this neurological disorder called schizophrenia, where people tend to, they are afraid of things that are not even around them. They have visions, they basically hallucinate. So AI hallucinations is when the same thing happens with an AI model. You ask a question to one of these tools like ChatGPT. They don't have an answer, but they are not built to tell you that they don't have an answer. So what are they forced to do? They are forced to go deeper and deeper into the resources they have, pick up some answer that looks like an accurate answer and bring it back to you. This answer is not accurate, this answer is not from the right source, sometimes this answer does not even exist in literature. That is called AI hallucination. Now, when you are asking fun questions to ChatGPT, this is problematic. But when you ask a very serious research question, academic question to ChatGPT, and then it starts hallucinating, the problem just compounds 100x, 100x, because research and teaching is where everything has to be accurate, everything has to be cross-checked and verified. ChatGPT does not do it. When you don't realize that ChatGPT is hallucinating, you end up giving answers that are completely nonsensical but might sound like they are. The second major limitation you have to understand with these AI uses, these are basically LLMs are large language models. So LLMs have a basic. LLMs do not understand language. You ask a question, ChatGPT does not understand your question. It gives you a nice, beautiful answer. It did not give you the answer because it understood the answer, but rather it's a very good probability model. When I say 1, 2, 3, ChatGPT knows the next part of the series is 4, 5, 6. When I say 2, 4, 6, ChatGPT knows the next set is 8, 10, 12. That is all it can do at a much more complex level in terms of language, in terms of being very intelligent in guessing the possible next 2 words, 3 words, and so on. It can identify patterns, it can work probabilities, but it does not understand language. And without understanding language, you cannot work on something as serious as research or academic. Now, to make you all up, I'm going to give you a small activity and I'm going to give you 1 minute to do this. So you have to draw out your notebooks, take a pen, pencil, and start drawing everything you see on the screen. And you have exactly 55 seconds to do that. Okay, 20 seconds gone. Let's see who finishes first. First benchers or last benchers? Last 30 seconds. 15 more seconds. If you're done, you can raise your hands. Okay? So it's very enthusiastic. Yes, okay, put up both hands. Okay, last 5 seconds.
No, I'm showing that.
No?
I'm showing my picture.
Yeah, I'll come to it, sir. Okay, done, stop. Now you can show me, not me the picture, you can show your picture to your neighbor and then you can look at what they do. Let's see the Picasso's in me. Is it fun? Is it nice? Okay, why is it only you're having fun? Please show your picture so that I can also have some fun. Can you raise your notebooks and show me the picture? Okay, I am not that young. My eyesight is not good. No light also. Can you just click on the next slide, please? Did you draw that looks like this? Did you draw a sun that looks like that? Now the important question. How many of you live in a house that looks like this? Does your house look like this? Do you live in a single room, single window, single door, thatched house? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
Then why did you draw this as a house? I asked you to draw a house. You should have drawn your house and not this as the house. This was the house that your kindergarten teacher taught you how to draw. Are you all in kindergarten? No, obviously no. So why did you draw the same house? Because this is called learned bias. We are influenced by what we are taught. Now imagine, I bring a small child into this room and I hand over the child to all of you and please draw your house. Oh, but even then you could have drawn a very skeletal house. At least something that is, multi-story, much bigger. But you still keep drawing the same tapered roof house because you were taught about it.
Two times hard to play that.
Okay, that is even worse now. Okay. So what was I saying? Yeah, so I bring a young child into the room and I ask you all to teach the child to draw a house. What will you do? Teach them the same house. And this is how it goes on from one generation to the other. Right? child I'm handing over to you, it's not a human child. This young child is the Gen AI that we are talking. This child or Gen AI has no idea of the real world. It does not go and live in a house. It does not go and see all houses around itself. Which means it is limited by what you teach, and what you teach is called the training data. All AI tools are limited by training data. So when your training data has problems in it, your output also has problems in it. And who created all the training data? We humans. And we humans are known for our biases. The moment someone walks into a room, you start judging them, even before they can express their opinions. We have an idea for everything. We have a judgment for everything. And all our training data is heavily compromised. And because AI was built on this compromised data, it is problematic. I'll show you an example for it. One more thing. Yeah, quickly. Just one thing. So now, look at these set of images. These images were created by a woman called Midjourney 2.5 years ago. Now you all know Midjourney, I believe. It's like Adobe Firefly or the image version of Canva, for instance, where you can give a prompt. So I have a purple flying pig in the background of a rainbow. The image is created in a few seconds. So when the user gave a few very simple prompts, this set of images were created. This is awesome. I'm not denying it, because now it means I don't have to learn Photoshop. Just describe what I have in very simple language, and the entire image can be created, which is a great thing. But after we are surprised, after we are impressed, let's take a pause, take a breath, and look at the images once again. Let's assume we're all sitting in the US. Even then, do you think all prisoners would look like that? Or to rephrase my question, are most prisoners black in the US? Let's say you fall down and scrape your knee, you go into a hospital there. Will you always meet a nurse who looks like that? Though some of us would wish they can meet such a nurse, but is that the reality? The more important question is, why should a nurse look a certain way, and why should a cleaner look something completely different? The user did not ask for a nurse of a specific ethnicity or the cleaner to look a certain way. But the AI has learned this from all the videos, the advertisements, the flyers, the website images that we have created, and it has understood or come to the conclusion that this is how a nurse has to look like, this is how a cleaner has to look like. This is very, very important. Now you can ask me, okay, this is for images. When I'm doing scientific writing, I'm not creating images in AI, because publishers anyways don't allow me to create images for AI. So why should I keep a writing? Bias is not just in images, it also exists in every single section. So when you go into a database like Google Scholar and ask for research papers, which you will eventually do the data part of the room, what kind of papers do you do? Do you read the free papers first, or do you read paid papers first? There are paywall papers, there are open access papers. People tend to read open access papers more simply because they are accessible. Normally, this should not be a problem. Open access is also literature. It's also comes from research. But the problem is, open access literature is heavily compromised literature. Open access literature is profit-driven literature because of publishers like ABPI, because of publishers like Taylor and Francis, which means open access literature is compromised literature, but that is freely available. And because that is freely available, most of these AI tools have trained their models to use open access literature. And when you ask a serious research question, you only get answers from this compromised biased literature, which is problematic. Most AI tools have not invested into paywall literature. This is a limitation that you can never find. Now, AI is everywhere. Many field you pick up, AI exists, conversations, so many conversations are in technology. But the problem is, the conversation is very one-sided. It's like running a race with Usain. Today, Bolt says that he cannot climb upstairs, his knees are paining. But you remember Bolt in his prime of his youth, when he starts dashing across the finish line, nobody can compete with this guy. He was that fast, because his reflexes were like laser sharp. So today, the technology is moving. Technology is running pretty fast. You said that when television was introduced first time, it took households in the US. But with AI, within a few months, it reached almost 60% of the urban population, no matter which country, which region you are talking about. When something is that fast, there are so many compromises. Nobody is talking about the legality of this static material. Nobody is talking about the ethical considerations. Nobody is talking about the impact on the environment. Running these AI tools comes at a huge cost. So if we are to be responsible citizens taking good decisions, these conversations should also be had. So how can I trust an AI in all of this? So are there some guidelines for me to follow to trust an AI to start using an AI? I would say a good AI should at least rest on these 5 pillars. The first is it has to be trusted. The company and the tool and how the tool operates on a day-to-day basis has to be transferred. The second is the data on which the tool was trained has to be clean. Now you can ask me this question: is ChatGPT legal in that sense? Did ChatGPT use very legal information to train the model? My answer is it's an open secret that ChatGPT used very questionable data as training material to build its model. So when something is built on illegal data, how can the final product be considered? This is not yet being questioned in courts at the moment, but it will catch up with them. The third tenet is accuracy. You cannot expect an AI to be 100% accurate, but at least a reasonable amount of accuracy is allowed. Then you have data breaks. Say you do research for 6 months. Then you take 3 months to write your paper or your thesis. Now you go and give this into an AI. I want this information to be safe. I don't want the AI to just plug this information and throw it into the public domain. Or just pick this information and start using it on its training. So I will pick tools that explicitly promise me that my data will not be used for training. The fifth requirement is that it has to be trustworthy. So what makes an AI tool trustworthy? For a tool to be trustworthy, the tool cannot be a black box. As in, I give an input, I get an output. There is no indication or no template what is happening between my input and the output. When such a black box system exists, I won't trust the tool. But when the tool offers me certain amount of transparency, then I am okay with it. Even today, even after 3 years, it's very important that we keep reiterating and understanding that AI was, is, and never will be the magic wand that it was. It will never solve all our problems. It will never take away all of our jobs, at least not for the next decade or so, thanks to policies and politics. What AI is a mirror. So when you see a mirror, it reflects whatever you throw into it. There is this term called GIGO, G-I-G-O, in technology, in marketing, everywhere. So GIGO stands for garbage in, garbage out. If you throw garbage into any tool, what you get out will also be garbage. But instead, if you throw in very quality questions, if you ask the right questions in the right format, the output will also be reasonably accurate. So how do I ensure that I am giving quality into the tool? By doing something called prompt engineering, where you ask better questions. You don't go into the tool and ask very basic questions like, what is photosynthesis? I am from a biology background, so photosynthesis naturally happens to be one of my favorite examples. I'm sure you all learn photosynthesis and you do know photosynthesis. So instead of asking such basic questions, when I ask what is photosynthesis, the tool will give me definition, it will give me the equation. You all remember the equation? 6CO2, 6H2O, C6H12O6 and so on. One of the first ever chemical equations we all know. Now, what is wrong with this answer? Nothing is wrong. Great answer. Yeah. So what was I saying? So now this equation and this content, no problem with the content as it is. But the problem is, what if I'm a grade 6 biology teacher trying to teach photosynthesis to grade 6 students? This output is useless too, because my grade 6 kids will not understand the equations simply because they have not learned it, nobody has taught them. Why is it that such an intelligent tool as ChatGPT cannot give me a simple lesson class 6 biology students. The problem is not ChatGPT. The problem is I did not communicate my requirement properly into ChatGPT. Had I prompt engineer as had I set the context, given the task, explained it very clearly with instructions and also going back and forth to clarify, this would have panned out very, very differently. How do I prompt engineer for the same question? I say that, okay, I am a grade 6 biology teacher. I want to create a lesson for grade 6 kids in say CBSE curriculum on photosynthesis. Help me use analogies, examples these kids can understand. Or say, give me exercises or activities that grade 6 students will enjoy. Now the ultimate functionality. Instead of having a very generic answer, ChatGPT will give me better examples. Now how does this translate when I am a researcher? Convey this information to ChatGPT. I am trying to write a master's thesis. I am trying to write a final thesis on this particular topic. So bring information only from proper literature. Give me information only from research journals. Only from good quality journals like Q1 journals, Q2 journals, Scopus Index journals and so on. And also for every key information give me a citation. Generate a reference list. So how will you instruct a Yahoo assistant? Never go in with abstract instructions. So say for instance, I can pick the same old example of a child. I bring a child, say a LKG, UKG child. I give them a paper for drawing. I give them a few pencils and then I tell them draw perfectly. Do you think they'll perfectly? They might not because they don't understand what perfect means. But instead, if I were to say that you see the shape of an apple here, you should color only within the lens. You cannot color outside the lens. And the coloring has to be done in very, very specific way. Say color from left to right, don't color randomly. Now this is a much better instruction than simply saying do this perfectly because perfect is not an instruction. Perfect is very arbitrary. It is the same way that you should be treating these AI assistants. Give very clear examples. Do not give vague examples. The moment you do that, you see that the output is way, way better. Treat them as young, very young assistants. So the goal here is your prompts should guide the AI tool to go from point A to point B without getting lost. Before we enter into understanding a handful of AI tools that you can use for your scientific writing or research writing journey, it's important to acknowledge that this AI ecosystem is pretty complex. So many layers to it and it is evolving every single day. So whatever
Sorry for the interruption.
yeah.
Can you go to the previous slide? No, 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 no.
This one?
Yeah, something else.
One, yeah. So AI as it is evolving. So what was not possible 3-4 months ago with some of these AI tools is possible today. So my talks have evolved over the past 3 years. 3 years back when I started talking about AI tools for research writing, there were so many questions from the audience for which I said, no, AI tool cannot do this. AI tool does not have the capability to do that. But today the answers have changed for so many of the questions. If I meet the same audience again, now I can say yes, AI can do this for you in your research writing journey because the tools have evolved. But despite the evolution, AI still has a lot of limitations. AI works best in the hands of an expert. So if you are someone new to research, someone new to the topic, AI will not help you. AI works when an expert who knows what the output has to be, who knows what is wrong, what is not, what is hallucinated, what is fact and accurate. That is when an AI works like a beautiful assistant doing the job perfectly well. But when you as a non-expert use the AI without a good idea of what the output has to be, that is really problematic. So on that note, and to add to the beautiful introduction already, I'm Dr. Soumya, and I do 2 things at least. One is where I go around almost across the country talking about how AI can be leveraged ethically for just research, but also in our classrooms as teachers for teaching better, for improving the learning outcomes, and also to give better assessments and do the evaluations better. The second part of my job is where I have a startup which is essentially a team of editors who work with researchers to help them polish their manuscripts, find the right journals, format as required by the journal guidelines, and also address the peer reviewer comments at a later stage so that they have a complete support system from the first draft till the submission till the publication. What we don't do is we don't ghostwrite. We have no talents with journals. We cannot tell you pay us 1 lakh, we'll get your manuscript published. That does not happen. We are on your side. We will be with you, we will be co-write with you, polish with you, and when the paper gets rejected, even after we work with you for several months, papers do get rejected. We cry with you, happily cry with you, and when it gets accepted, eventually 2 journals, 3 journals later, we'll be very happy to party and celebrate with you. So that's what we do, and that's where I come from. And almost all of what I talk from this point comes from this experience of having interacted closely with researchers and teachers over the past 3+ years, especially in the context of AI for teaching and research. So when we look at research, one of the first and very important places where AI can help you is finding what is called literature. So literature essentially means sources of information. You cannot get your information from Wikipedia if you are writing your paper or writing your you go into very specialized databases like Google Scholar, for instance. But the problem with Google Scholar is that it is a very keyword-based tool, just like Google. So when I go into Google and say Apple, Google does not know which apple I am talking about. It brings all results pertaining to the fruit apple, where I have the nearest juice shop next to me. It also talks about Steve Jobs, it also talks about iPod, iPad, and everything under the Apple company logo as well. So what is wrong? Why is Google doing this to me? Problem, not Google. Problem me, because I vaguely said Apple. So there is a lot of efforts that goes into asking the right questions or giving the right keywords. Same thing happens with Google Scholar. So instead of starting with Google Scholar, one simple change you can make is start with something called semantics of their history. So what happens is Google Scholar, 4 or 5 keywords, you have 10,000, 20,000 papers, most of which are not even relevant to what you are asking for. But when you do the same thing with Semantics Scholar, because it works on semantics, it looks at interactions between the words, the frequency of repetition of words and so on. End result, not 10,000 papers, if you are lucky, hardly 400, 500 papers. Now these 400, 500 papers are going to be much more relevant to what you are asking, which means in the initial days you are not overwhelmed. You have the right papers, small collection of papers. Later on, when you need to expand, you can always go back to Google Scholar. But starting with Semantics Scholar will help you have a much more efficient work. Next slide. So this is just the interface of Semantics Scholar. One other way in which you can find literature, this is how people normally find literature. When I read one paper, I go into what is called references or linked papers, find those papers, read those papers. I don't read the full paper. I just read the abstract, I just read the title, keywords probably, and take one simple decision. Because literature search is not reading full papers. It is just reading title, abstract, keywords, and taking one small decision. Should I save this paper? Should I not save this paper? Now, any time a process is this slow, it has a set of rules, it's linear, no creativity whatsoever required, and AI tool can do a much better job than you can, and that is why citation mining tools like litmaps are popular, and they are also efficient in quickly finding papers. How can we search papers using litmaps? You can use a set of keywords. You can start with a question, you can start with 1 or more papers. In the next 1 minute or so, litmaps will come up with just 20 papers that are closely related to whatever paper, whatever theme that you had picked already. Which means I am not dealing with 10,000 papers from Google Scholar. I don't even have to deal with 400, 500 papers on Semantics Scholar, but rather I am starting at a much more niche, small group of papers, like hardly 20 papers, making my life very easier. Now, I will press litmaps, so I will click on each of these circles. So the circles here represent papers, and the lines you see connecting these circles are what we call citation or references. So if I want to confirm if litmaps is taking the right decision, I can click on the circle, I can read the abstract and title, and then get maps save papers. So once I have saved one collection, I use this collection for searching more papers. More collection, more papers. So I am building in a bottom-up approach, which means at every single point I have more control on the papers, less overwhelm, much better to collect related papers. The next slide, please. So now recently, Google Scholar introduced what is called Scholar Labs. So Scholar Labs is the AI functionality of Google Scholar. The problem, what Scholar Labs does is you can ask a question and Scholar Labs will go and find 10 papers related to your question. This is very little, very late because there are amazing tools which were doing much more than this basic functionality 3 years ago. And one such tool is called Transcensus. So when we started out on the tools, I talked about prompt engineering. So every time you go into a tool, a generic tool like Perplexity or ChatGPT or Claude for that matter, you should keep priming the tool by saying that I am a researcher, behave like a researcher, give me only journal articles, give me only information from very formal sources, which is pretty tiring. I know you can build your own GPT for that, but even when you do that, it's slightly tiring. Instead, these tools were built for that purpose. These tools are built to give you only relevant information, which means I don't have to prompt it. Anytime I need to ask a research question, I just go in and ask the question directly. No prompting, nothing. The tool by default will bring me answers from scientific literature, from proper journals. All the information has appropriate citations. A reference list is also generated at the end of the paragraph, making my life pretty easy. Now the output looks pretty much like what you will get out of ChatGPT. The difference is the language is more formal. These tools do not usually hallucinate. And the third thing is, at the end of every sentence, at the end of a sentence, you can see there is something called a citation or a number or a reference where the original source of information can be found, which means my life becomes easier. Now there are two questions at this point. The first is this content plagiarized? Will this show up as plagiarism if I use it as it is on my manuscript? The answer is no. These tools have been built exceptionally well to summarize, which means they do a good job of paraphrasing by design, even if not out of intent. Therefore, most of these academic AI tool generated content does not show up as plagiarism. But having said that, this is still AI generated content. This will still show up as AI content. Plagiarism is different, AI content is different, but both of them are not accepted in academic writing. Means I cannot use this information as it is on my manuscript, on my thesis, but I can use this as a starting point to build my arguments for my thesis or book. Standing at a blank page is daunting, super scary most times. With these tools, you don't have to do that. You have starting material, you have starting arguments. You can start from there and then slowly build your argument one step at a time. So after I have found literature, after I have found answers,
Just to relate to, I want some more clarity on that guidance. Recently, Bihar UGC has rejected some theses for 1 month use because of AI plagiarism.
yes,
So, they say that this will show less plagiarism.
this will show almost very little plagiarism, but it is still AI content. It will not show traditional plagiarism, where content is copied as it is. Instead, this is properly paraphrased. It is not traditional plagiarism, but it is still what you call AI plagiarism. So it is still AI
No,
content.
it happened recently, 1 month before, the thesis were rejected by
Yeah, theses have been rejected, papers have been rejected because researchers just take it as it is and use it in their thesis, which can never happen. With none of the AI tools, nowhere can you just ask a question, get the answer and just copy paste the answer. The answer is for your understanding. The answer is for you to quickly figure out what the paper is all about. The answer is for you have the same information in a much more simple language, much more understandable language. That content is not suitable for copy pasting into a thesis or into your assignments or into a paper, conference abstracts. Nowhere can you do a job of copy paste when you use an AI tool for asking these questions.
As you said, madam,
Yes.
what is the framework promise to be
Yes, definitely yes. So those are great frameworks for increase. Those are great starting points. Instead of starting at a blank page, you get an outline. You get an idea of what all can I discuss under this topic. What are the different subheadings under which I can discuss this particular literature, and that is where it stops. No copy pasting, no using the content as it is. That absolutely does not work. Okay. So once we have found literature by asking questions or by using semantic scholar, what is the next step? Next step is to get information from hundreds of papers. Very specific information from multiple papers. Say for instance, I am writing a grant proposal or a project proposal. Now, I am not interested in reading full papers. When I am writing a proposal, my first step is to identify a suitable research gap and then define a good research question. For this, when I am reading hundreds of papers, I just want information from very specific sections of the paper. I will read the research question of the paper. I will read the limitations of the paper. I will read what is called the future directions of the paper, and that is that. Just within this, I get all information needed for identifying research gap and formulating a research question. Now that becomes easy with tools like Elicit, Answer This, SciSpace. You have so many other choices where when you ask a question, the tool does not just give you answer, but it also gives you a tabular column that gives you hundreds of papers. In SciSpace, by default, you have 100 papers listed for you, and you add columns. So do you want to read only methods? Add a column called methods. You want to read only research gap? Add a column called research gap. Now what will happen is what called the literature matrix. Only information you want from hundreds of papers will be brought into a nice tabular format. This will help you quickly navigate through 100 papers. Here again, no copy pasting, no using this information as it is on your thesis or anywhere. This is for you to understand papers better, for you to read more papers in a less amount of time. Now all the tools that we talked about until now will work if you are writing a very simple literature review. But if you are writing something called a systematic literature review, those tools will not work. You will have to look at much more complex tools like RIAN, for instance, because the systematic literature review with meta-analysis or without meta-analysis is a much more complex process. I'm not going into the details. The next slide, please. And now we have tools like Auto-SR, which can write an entire systematic. So normally a narrative review takes 6 months to write, but a systematic literature review takes 2 years to write. That is how difficult it is to write a systematic literature review. But today, AI can do the job in a few hours. The question is, can we use AI-generated content? Right now, it is not possible because AI is still not trustworthy. Publishers don't allow the use of AI content. But 10 years from now, we never know. AI can evolve to be much more accurate than humans, and maybe just maybe publishers will allow AI-generated content. But today, the policy and the guideline is that you can reuse such tools for understanding the process and not exactly for submitting papers to the journal. The problem with AI is, once AI walked into our lives, we want everything to be AI. There are so many tools which are not AI, but can help us equally well. One such tool is called Obsidian. Obsidian like the jewel, like the chip. So what can this do? It is like having a Microsoft Word document, but within the document you can add videos. You can drag and drop PDF files. You can add links. You can cross-reference between different files and so on. So essentially it is called something as a knowledge management system or a KMS, where you can have all different formats of knowledge in just one document, so that it is easier for you to process it when you are writing your thesis or when you are writing your manuscript. One of the major problem with manuscripts is actually sitting down and reading manuscripts. Manuscripts are boring, no doubt about that. It's boring to the core. Most of them read every single paragraph, and that's perfectly okay, because they don't always upload information, they just jump in. Manuscripts are for experts. So how do students or young researchers who don't have a manuscript understand manuscripts better? Because you cannot always have a supervisor or a senior researcher sitting by your side throughout the manuscripts to you. That is why tools like SciSpace have gone ahead with features like Copilot. So the tool is called SciSpace, the feature is called Copilot. I will show you in the hands-on session as well. So here on these tools, what can happen is you can upload a PDF version of the paper, and anytime you go to certain sections, you can just highlight the section using your mouse and ask for explanations. And the tool will explain this section from the basics, entries in the terminology, definition, everything will be explained in very simple, detailed language, helping you understand science. What best is, this does not only work for text, it also works for equations. So when you don't understand the equation, when you don't understand the thing, you can use this tool to get more information on the equation or more information on the tables, making you or helping you to understand papers better. With the advent of AI, everything has changed. The way we read papers has also changed. So now it is no longer necessary that you sit at one place or you print out a paper to read the paper. Instead, there are amazing apps like Speechify, Listening.io for instance, where you can upload a paper and you can simply listen to the paper as you are heading to class, as you are driving, as you are cooking, as you are eating the gym and whatnot. Parallelly, there are two other applications. If you are a student, you can listen to your class notes last minute before your exams. You can use the app for that as well. When you write your own thesis, after you have written your thesis, after you have edited your thesis for 3 to 4 times, it's very difficult to find errors. Same applies to manuscripts as well. Even for very experienced researchers, if it is your manuscript, you cannot find faults. It's very difficult to find errors. So instead, don't keep reading your manuscript. Listen, throw it into a reliable tool, or just use the read aloud option on MS Word, for instance. When you listen to your writing, all those long sentences that make people sleep, it will all slap you right on your face. And you will wake up, you will know this doesn't make sense, it's not good. So you can go back and edit those sentences. So that is what becomes better. The next slide. So until this point, majorly we don't have any ethical issues with the use of AI. Why? Because until now we used tools for finding literature. They don't change what you get. You use tools for understanding papers better. You use tools for getting information quickly. And nowhere are you using the information as it is on your papers. But what happens when we use tools or tools that have summarizing features like Scholars? Because on these tools today you have the capability that you can upload papers and the tool will summarize information from multiple papers. A very nice summary. The problem is AI written content, AI summarized content, AI paraphrased content, all look the same to AI content images. All of this will still show up as AI content, which means you have to be pretty careful when you use AI tools for summarizing. You can use it for summarizing, just don't use the output as is. So my advice through these 3 years has been to have 2 different interfaces, like 2 different Word documents at least. First Word document, you talk to AI, you co-work with AI and you generate ideas. Document number 2, that is your actual draft, where only you write. No Control-C, Control-V business at all. You write from scratch. Every single word you understand from your document 1 and write down document 2. That is the absolutely best way to use AI for helping you in your writing processes. So not just the way you write papers can also be upgraded with AI with tools like AudioFit. So these are very small apps that you can simply have on your mobile, and anytime you have an idea, just dictate those notes into your application. Give me a moment. don't just capture information and give it to you in written format. These tools also do a good job of proofreading. So when you talk in very broken sentences, not all of us have to speak in good English, right? Because we come from a country where English is not supposed to be the first language of preference, but somehow we have landed there, forced to use English for communication. Some of you may be great communicators, our language is not. These tools especially help such students and researchers who lack just in language. Talk in broken sentences. So you can talk in broken sentences, no grammar required whatsoever. As long as you give all the necessary information, this tool or similar tools will fill in the information, proofread, correct the grammatical errors, and give you really nice written content. Again, don't blindly copy paste. Use it as a starting material. You do a bit of your own polishing, and then it is ready for you to use elsewhere. So now, considering that our refreshments are here, let's take a quick break, and when we come back from the break, I'll be happy to take a few questions, and then we can proceed to the end of the session. So see you after the break.
Madam, that's it. But